This is my audiovisual essay on what sustainable strategies are fast fashion brands using and how do they influence consumer behavior. When was the last time you wore the same attire twice? Do you consider the manufacturing location of your clothing? Do you retain a piece of apparel until you outgrow it? Or do you change your wardrobe seasonally? These inquiries may seem tiresome, but they are more prevalent as consumers worldwide focus on ways to make their purchases more environmentally friendly. The word fast fashion is used to characterize the mass manufacturing of cheap clothing. According to Gupta and James, fast fashion is a retail strategy where merchants use marketing strategies to keep up with the newest fashion trends by regularly updating goods with quick renewal cycles and quickly shifting the inventory. Fast fashion is one of the biggest contributors to the fashion business's negative effects on the earth. Oceans, wastewater, poisonous dyes, and underpaid laborers are all harmed by the pollution caused by plastic fibers. Although the environmental consequences of fast fashion are increasing, scientists argue there is another way, which is a circular economy for textiles. While biodegradable elements from natural or recycled fibers are used in sustainable apparels, these products require less energy and water. They grow without the use of pesticides or fertilizers and don't undergo any chemical processing, all of which help to lower that overall carbon. Fast fashion companies are beginning to use ecological practices to lessen their environmental effects. Consumer and producer demand for the supply chain to adapt to accommodate sustainable fashion is rising. Fast fashion brands now appear to be implementing some sustainable fashion tactics. In this video essay, I'll be discussing with the creative director, Style by Celeste, how her fast fashion brand employs sustainable practices, the impact of consumer behavior, also discussing shifts in consumer shopping habits, greater knowledge, and the desire for sustainability.
Our brand Style by Celeste is run by myself and my sister Uzo. We're in Abuja, Nigeria. We tailor ready to wear, tastefully tailored ready to wear. We pay attention to our finishing, we pay attention to fabric options. We used to tailor and we have our own size guide that was adapted to suit the African body shape.
Looking at sustainability serves as a catch all phrase for clothing that is produced and used in a way that can be practically sustained while safeguarding the environment and the people who make the clothing.
So for me, sustainability is not just about the environment.
Yeah.
Sustainability is also about our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with people around us, our relationship with organizations, relationship with institutions. For me, sustainability is very broad. Actually, because we have only one Earth. This is the one house that we have, and we are seeing what's going on, global warming. We're seeing how they're dumping fabrics, like all the offcuts. Like it's not good. Like I see like where they dump them, and apparently it emits methane or something like that into the atmosphere, and that's very very bad. We don't want to start having issues down the line, not just for us, for generations to come.
Utilizing sustainable materials, which originate from renewable resources and do not harm the environment during production or disposal, is arguably the most crucial stage in developing an ecologically friendly fashion business.
So for our brand, I would say because we pay attention to the kinds of fabric we use, because we try to use more of silks, more of cotton. These are fabrics that are biodegradable. So I think in our own little way, even though we are still fast fashion, we try not to use like very cheap, like nylons or like like chiffons to an extent or like polyester rayon. We don't use all those fabrics that are not nice. We like to pick fabrics that are nice on the skin. We try to tailor it perfectly, like see how neat my
Hmm.
stuff is. Like you try to tailor it like neatly tailored. So even when your customers purchase it, you find out that they're wearing it like years down the line. And if you're wearing it for a long time, that means that even when you're done wearing it, you can give it out to another person to wear, as opposed to like, oh, after one or two washes, you're like, this fabric is rubbish. I don't like it anymore. I want to throw it away and buy another one. So in our own little way, in our fabric choices, and in the way we tailor our items.
The issues are now being more aggressively addressed by retailers. Significant environmental attempts have been made by H&M, Uniqlo, Mango, and ASOS. An examination of the situation is Inditex. The company that owns Zara has recently announced a new set of sustainability goals, including the aim for all its cotton, linen, and polyester to be sustainably sourced by 2025. This means that all cotton will be grown by the Better Cotton Initiative and 100% of the retailer's polyester will be recycled. These materials make up to 90% of Inditex fabrics, so more careful sourcing will help the company reduce its environmental impact. However, the company has not specified what it means by sustainable for rayon or linen. Due to their heavy reliance on low cost, outsourced labor, one of the biggest issues in the fashion business is how workers are handled. Only a few fashion companies have successfully improved the working circumstances in their supplier networks. A great deal can still be done to guarantee that employees are fairly paid, are working in secure settings, and are given fundamental human rights. Employing worker-owned unions which offer workers more control over their working circumstances is one way for fashion labels to guarantee that employees receive a reasonable salary. Fashion companies can lessen the prevalence of unfair labor practices in their supply networks and supply the protection of workers' rights by purchasing from worker-owned unions. Durability and quality are potential additional sustainable design tactics. By increasing transparency, the knowledge divide can be closed. Informing customers about product longevity and effect per wear increases the attractiveness and ease of purchasing sustainable products. Also, looking at consumer behavior is significantly changing as a result of fast fashion companies' adoption of sustainable business practices. Only a small percentage of fashion buyers routinely give sustainability top priority when they purchase, even though 65% of customers worry about the environment. Among the impacts that fast fashion companies' sustainable business practices are having on consumers are that sustainability is desired for consumers who care about the environment frequently. They press fashion companies for greater responsibility, motivating them to embrace a more sustainable approach and move towards green fashion. Two-thirds of surveyed European customers stated that it has become more crucial for them to minimize the effects of climate change, highlighting this tendency during the COVID-19 issue. Additionally, more than half of them significantly alter their lives to become greener. Also, alterations in consumer behavior shows by purchasing vintage and used clothing once more, consumers are altering the amount of apparel that would otherwise end up in landfills. Clothing manufacturers and merchants can encourage customers to use clothing care techniques that are less harmful to the ecosystem and prolong the life of their clothes. Consumer purchasing decisions are also affected by psychological, social, and individual variables. Looking at some challenges and restrictions, consumer behavior is only one factor among many that the fashion industry must consider, making the shift to more sustainable practices. For there to be any real change, companies, customers, and the government must work together. Several important factors include greenwashing, a lack of transparency, consumer behavior, a lack of resources, government rules, a lack of access, and time restrictions. Furthermore, looking at the pros and cons, overall, since sustainable business practices in the fashion industry can have favorable effects on the ecosystem and society, they outweigh their drawbacks. But putting sustainable plans into practice can be difficult, and real change won't come about without the combined efforts of businesses, customers, and governments. Fast fashion companies can gain from using sustainable strategies in several ways, such as decreased environmental effects, better working conditions, raised customer consciousness, brand distinctiveness, and long term cost saving. On the other hand, there are also several challenges associated with implementing sustainable strategies in the fashion industry, including limited accessibility as people continue to purchase an increasing amount of clothing. The customer demand is very high, however, not all clothing can be recycled. The current manufacturing processes are typically not very environmentally friendly, and the existing manufacturing methods are too slow to keep up with the quickly changing fashion trends. For suggestions and further developments, in summary, a few potential suggestions for further growth include the adoption of a circular economy model, increased study, education, collaboration, invention, transparency, and customer participation. There is still a lot of work to be done. Fast fashion is a major contributor to the growing textile waste problem, with millions of garments ending up in dumps every year. The company and the clients must prioritize sustainable practices and positively impact the ecosystem and its residents.
I would say um clothes don't have to be too cheap or too expensive for like they can be a middle ground.
Mhm.
When you're sourcing your fabrics, pay attention to the quality, pay attention to the kind of fabric that you're using. Bear in mind that we have only one home, this one earth that we're all staying in. We have to think about it. You have to think about waste. You have to think about waste management. Awareness is key. A lot of people don't know because they're not even aware. They don't
Yeah.
know that there's an impact, of all this in the because apparently fashion uh what we fashion all those things, all those the garbage and etc from fashion is even worse than oil and gas apparently. That's very bad. I saw a lot of like land mines or landfills where they pack like fabrics, and I'm like, what's going on here? And when you buy all these very cheap, for example, I don't know if I should name names now, like abroad, you buy all these clothes that are so cheap that you wear once or twice and you can't wear it again. They throw it away, and then it's not degrading, nothing, it's just there. People need to be more aware. So awareness is key. Maybe people that know about it, maybe workshops to let people know, create awareness, educate, so that people know that okay, you know what, you don't want to accept this kind of fabrics. We like to accept and to tailor with these kinds of fabrics here in Africa.
Ultimately, the power to drive change lies in the hands of consumers. By making informed choices and demanding transparency and sustainability from fast fashion brands, we can create a more ethical and environmentally responsible industry.